If you didn't already know, it is 2025. That is the year that we are in. And coincidentally, the year that Black Ops 2 takes place in is also 2025. And at the beginning of this year, I made a video going over what Black Ops 2 predicted correctly, what they predicted incorrectly, and turns out they actually predicted a lot more correctly than we originally realized. In fact, the entire story of Black Ops 2 is currently, like as of right now, coming true. If you didn't know, just the other day, this is what happened.
Halting the export of those valuable rare earths, which are critical for so many US high-tech industries.
So China, after the whole tariffs thing that's going on, blocked the export of rare earths or rare earth materials or rare earth elements. Does anybody know what the Black Ops 2 story is? Like the entire background? It is this.
Give me your phone. Go ahead. Rare earth elements. Whole fucking world runs on this shit. Who controls all of it? China.
So yeah, the stories are almost completely identical, but there are some similarities and there are some differences, and that is what we're going to be comparing in this video, as well as going into some other things that Black Ops 2 got correct, as well as what this could mean moving forward and how those similarities are way too similar for comfort. But first, let's discuss why China made this decision in Black Ops 2. So in 2025 in Black Ops 2, there was essentially a cyber attack on China, which was blamed by a group called Cortus Die on America. However, as we later find out, it was indeed Cortus Die that did it and then framed America for it. However, because of this, it causes a Cold War between China and America. And the first thing that they do is shut them off from rare earth elements.
Raul fucking Menendez. Asshole. I told JSOC, but they were too busy. See, the drone race had started. I mean, really, guys? You're gonna build an entire military based on a mineral element that's wholly controlled by China?
Now, going back to the real world, what we need to realize is that these rare earths that China is withholding are pretty much in everything. All consumer electronics, all military grade electronics, and basically anything that flies, moves, or pretty much does anything.
Including computer chips, electric vehicle batteries, medical equipment, and in the aerospace industry.
And like Frank Woods said there, we have an economy completely based on these items, and guess what? China almost has all of these elements in the world.
China now accounts for some 90% of global production.
Now, unlike the game, this didn't start because of a cyber attack, but rather a large amount of tariffs that America essentially put on the world as an effort to keep their jobs in America and keep exports out. Well, it's definitely keeping these exports out. As we see throughout Black Ops 2, this massive Cold War eventually turns into a completely different futuristic type of war, one purely based off of drones. Drones that essentially all of China owns the mineral rights to. And believe it or not, this is actually something we saw repeated in the real world, as drones have been a massive part of the Russian-Ukraine war. Even smaller consumer level drones have been used by a bunch of the various different militaries on either side of this war. And with the rare earth elements no longer being in the United States, we know who will have more of a trouble producing these. Now, politics, whatever side you're on or whatever you agree with, the crazy part is this is the exact plot point that peaked the beginning of Black Ops 2. It's not the only thing that they predicted right.
I'm proud to announce Willow. By our best estimates, a calculation that takes Willow under 5 minutes would take the fastest supercomputer 10 to the 25 years. That's a 1 with 25 zeros following it.
This is an early look at quantum computing, something that is becoming bigger and bigger by today's standards, and something that these rare earth elements are certainly used for, specifically the fabricated chips that are used by these companies. However, this was also a thing in Call of Duty Black Ops 2. However, the rare earth element that they were using there, where China was also withholding it, went by the name of Solarium. Whereas these are the ones that China is currently withholding. I'm not going to try to pronounce any of these because if I did so, everyone would just make fun of me. Believe it or not, this is not the first time we've seen this in the real world. A couple years ago, this little thing that happened called COVID that did a very similar thing, because all of these things that were made in China stopped getting shipped over to try to stop the spread of the virus. Once again, we started to realize that these chips, these various transistors that were made there, and the materials that made them we're no longer coming in. Now, comparatively to what's going on in the real world, in the games, there's something called the SDC. This was a group of Asian nations who all grouped together during this time against America. Now, Russia was kind of had its own thing going on there, and kind of like real world politics, depending on what's going on everywhere else, depending on where America decides to side with, whether that be Ukraine or Russia, that is kind of who they're going to end up siding with, whether that be China, whether that be the United States of America. Now, going back in game, the decision on who Russia sides with is based off of something completely different, something called strike force missions. Now, essentially, these are optional missions that you don't have to do, but based off of whether you do them or not, it changes the ending of the game. And in one of the endings, if you complete all of these strike force missions, Russia ends up siding with you. However, if you do not complete the strike force missions, Russia ends up siding with China. So depending on who Russia ends up siding with, we know whether or not Donald Trump actually completed the strike force missions. The other thing that we have within Black Ops 2 is the USS Obama, which is the big ship that you find yourself on closer to the end of the campaign. Now, as of right now, that doesn't exist. However, if you look at the US boats, they almost always name them after US president. However, this year there were two named after presidents, both Bill Clinton and George W. Bush, which means coming up very, very soon could be the USS Obama. Now, after the massive drone war in Call of Duty Black Ops 2, one thing that was created is something by the name of the Winslow Accord. Now, this doesn't currently exist in the world, but eventually we could see something eventually forming like this. Now, if you're wondering what else happened with China in Black Ops 2, this is what happened after Raul Menendez framed America.
China's Premier Chen is outraged by Cortes Diaz's leaked memo, alleging the cyber attack was covertly ordered by the White House.
And through all the dirty shit the US government's gotten away with, this time they're innocent and no one fucking believes them. They take out Cortes Diaz's network 2 days later. The director of the FBI burned alive. Right now, 1 billion people believe that Raul Menendez is their savior. Guess what, boys? He's not. You better take him out pretty fucking quick.
So yeah, the story's not exactly the same, but there are some massive similarities. But clearly the things we have to be on the lookout for are, number one, FBI director, careful in the next coming days. And number two, if anyone hears anything about anyone by the name of Raul Menendez, keep on the lookout. Also, the rumors are that next year's Call of Duty is supposed to be Black Ops 7 and take place in the year 2035. The other question is, are they going to be able to predict the future right once again?
We are reaching for the stars, but we're